Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be answering the question time questions for September's edition. So, Pancake and I were not able to coordinate our times super well to this, so I'll be answering the videos on my own, and I guess I will just get started with it. So, the first question is Hurtbox84. They asked, do I like Mega Man? And have I played Mega Man X Dive or be interested in a Mega Man collab with Gung-Ho? Having a relationship with Capcom. Love my work, bro. I appreciate the fact that you love my work. I have probably played Mega Man at some point in my distant past, but I never owned any of the games. Maybe it was at a friend's house, and I've probably played only a handful of times at best, so I don't really have any emotional attachment to the franchise, unfortunately. Arthasak Bansai says, do I think there will ever be eventually more than 9 base awakenings? Do I think the default damage cap will eventually be increased to the current double damage cap? And when do I think pad will truly die out in North America? So I feel like going beyond 9 base awakenings is not out of the question, but what might in turn happen instead is just improving existing awakenings. We've seen skill boost become skill boost plus, time extend plus, so on and so forth. So it may not be unreasonable to see more efficient or spicier upgrades to keep the 9 limit. Because if you go beyond 9 awakenings, it's just going to add in another level of complexity, which in turn means Gung-Ho can throw in more mechanics for a dungeon, so it becomes even more mechanic heavy of a game, and I don't think that's necessarily going to be the best thing overall. The default damage cap, I don't think it should change, because I like how we don't have damage control necessarily, but we have, can we do enough damage? And I think that's still interesting because you still have to build teams that can pump out large amounts of damage on a regular basis for the current hardest dungeons. And I think it's a good place because you think, well, I have 6 damage caps possibly, I do 12.6 odd billion damage, and if they have 15 billion health, I need to do less first and then try and execute them. So I think it's in a good place with that regards. And then when do I think pad will truly die out in NA? It's impossible to say because I feel like the fact that we're getting new events, new collabs, etc. on a regular basis, it just shows that the server is doing healthy overall, so I don't really foresee it ending anytime soon. xRandom Donald says, hi Mantastic, what are my thoughts of waifus replacing my actual girlfriend? Ha, not gonna happen, it's obviously just a joke. Plandini says, do I have any interest in Pokemon? They personally grew up with Gen 4, which is coming out as a remake in November. Gen 4 is getting 2 new games soon, so I was curious about my own experience. Well, when I was growing up, video games were evil. I was not allowed to play video games. I was not allowed to own a Game Boy or any form of Nintendo console, PlayStation, any console. So I grew up not playing video games whatsoever. And look at me now. Clearly it worked out. So I didn't have that Pokemon experience. When I was 10 years old, that was in 2000. I feel like that's kind of a time when Pokemon was quite big and exciting, and every single person at school had a Game Boy but me, and I felt a little bit left out, so I never got a chance to really play Pokemon, aside from a little bit this year when my friend lent me Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, which is basically Gen 1, which is what I grew up seeing overall. So I played it for a bit, and it was nice, but then I just kind of was not so great overall. I feel like there are more interesting things I can play, so I don't really have that kind of attachment, unfortunately, Plandini. Arman says, what new anime am I watching, if any? I actually don't watch anime. We watch various TV shows on Netflix or Amazon Prime, and lately we've watched Clickbait, which we've enjoyed. I think we haven't finished it, but it's still enjoyable. We've also watched The Expanse, which we enjoy, but we don't at least I don't watch anime. Pancake might sometimes, but I just don't. I never grew up watching anime, so it's hard for me to get into it perhaps. And then they also asked, have I ever been cyberbullied? And if so, how do I overcome any internet negativity? Well, I don't think I would have cyberbullying necessarily, but I've had internet trolls or haters or whatever you want to call them for the various media platforms that I utilize. When I first started out, there was plenty of negativity no matter what you do on the internet, and in all honesty, eventually it hurt initially because they would say hateful stuff that wasn't even true, and it would bother me for a while, but then over time I just realized these are internet strangers who are basically trying to goad a reaction from someone else, and I really think their lives are probably quite pitiful in itself, because in order to make themselves feel good, they had to put others down, and then I realized it's not that big a deal. And furthermore, no matter how great or wonderful a person you may think you are, you can never, ever please every single person. There's always going to be someone who dislikes you. You could be the nicest person and give out tons of wonderful stuff, and there will be people who complain, you're not giving out enough, herp derp, etc. So you just got to move on and live with it, because those internet trolls, they really just don't have much merits in your own life. what's important, at least in my point of view, is the things around you. So like my immediate family, Pancake, that sort of idea, and close friends. Like I care what those people think as opposed to strangers. Lightning Gamer says, have I ever seen the show Invincible or read it? And if I have, what are my thoughts? I have not watched nor read the Invincible series, unfortunately, Lightning Gamer, so it's impossible for me to give any opinion on it. Blue Cross says, do I ever regret getting into pad? I'd say no. Like, pad has been great for me. Like, I enjoy what the game offers. I enjoy the community that I've built, and along with the community that's just existing as on the macro scale. So I don't think I would say I regret playing pad. The only, I guess, maybe regret I might have is I didn't pick a big or popular enough game to be more self-sufficient. Just because, like, the North American server just doesn't have the player base to be as, well, it's just not as large overall by comparison to, like, other games that just get much more views, etc. Andyguru says, how do I feel about the fact that pad, unlike most other RPGs, doesn't display enemy health or give any indication as what they'll attack the player? I think that's a terribly outdated mechanic, and they need to change that because they advertise themselves as a puzzle game, but they don't tell you any information, and it's basically just trial and error. And I feel like that's just a cumbersome thing, especially when dungeons are unbelievably long and difficult. You might spend 40 minutes getting to something and then die to a spawn that did something completely unexpected you weren't prepared for, and it just feels at least a bad taste in your mouth, I feel, overall, because of the fact that dungeons are so long. If it took maybe like 7 to 10 minutes to clear something, it wouldn't be so bad if like you die premature or like die in an unexpected way because you can just restart and it won't take too long. But in the current endgame content, if it's going to be your first clear, it's probably going to take around an hour or so. So it doesn't feel good when you get to the very end and then die to something truly unexpected because of no information being displayed. I think that's something they should change overall. Brundo Man Bro asks, what kind of stylus do I use or recommend? I use the Pad Pen, which is a mesh tip stylus, and I find like that kind of tip adheres better to the screen surface. But at the same time, a stylus all depends on your own personal preference. If it doesn't feel nice when you're moving, it's not the right stylus for you. Conversely, if it feels nice, that is the right one. It may not necessarily be the one that other people like, but for myself, it's a mesh tip. Duke Nuke says, they know I enjoy reading dystopic novels, etc., but were I ever into comic books, graphic novels? I never was. Like, growing up, my entertainment sources were sports and borrowing and reading books from the library, and they didn't have comic books nor graphic novels, if I'm not mistaken. Remember, I was born in 1990. A lot of this happened in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was growing up. So, like, I don't think they were, like, as popular and, like, just as accessible. So, I just didn't have any chance to get into that, unfortunately. And they also asked, Duke, is also North America not getting the Marvel collab? It's impossible to say whether or not we will get a collab or not because of licensing and whatnot. It's just not within our power, nor I have no way of knowing what's going to happen. Alien Dude says, thank you for everything. I feel like I'm on the right path in life. They're going to upgrade their education, will never quit trying. They think in the past they were extremely worried about their future because they were trying to do advanced stuff even though they didn't have their basics down. They take every step of a career like taking taking harder and harder courses like basic math, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus, linear algebra, etc. They definitely shouldn't try to do linear calculus if they're struggling to do basic math. Yes, you need to learn how to walk or crawl before you can run, and they should try to learn basic math as best they can, then move on to the next level. Pancake is wise about not needing to worship the job and not dislike the job is okay. They're in that situation, they'll quit their full-time minimum wage job and they get their true career start. Well, that's wonderful to hear. I'm glad to hear you're getting yourself on track. And in all honesty, like, upgrading your education is a wonderful way to improve your employability because you just have more skills, you're a more well-rounded individual. So I'm glad to hear that, Alien Dude. Gabe Gonzalez says, is Monster Point farming still a thing? I don't really think it is because there's very few valid things in the Monster Exchange shop aside from the current 5 million one. Point one, and maybe I guess almonds if you're desperate for skill boost weapons, but the fact that they cost like 750,000 or 5 million monster points means farming for a couple thousand at a time is just going to be a tedious venture overall. There's no truly great place to acquire monster points in an efficient manner. Back when like it was 300k for those monster point dragons, maybe you could argue it was a bit easier to farm up, but nowadays there's not that much. Like pre-draw farming doesn't really do much, unfortunately, overall. They know for the most part the rewards from gift dungeons and event dungeons more than enough for the average player, but has improved since the 500 MP monsters from the special descends. Like, I don't think it really has. Like, you can't farm those rewards. You clear stuff, and then you just acquire the rewards. You can't play it over and over again to get more, unfortunately, Gabe. Ultra Boosted has 2 comments. They ask, when you feel like you don't want to play the game anymore, what do I do and how do I overcome this? I just put it down. I don't look at it. Well, I log in, do my free daily, whatever gift dungeon there may be. Do that, stop. Don't look at it, take a break. It's what I do, and it works for myself. I played for over 8 since 2013, I think. So that's what works for myself. Just like, sometimes it's okay to put it down and just set it aside. And if you are planning to do that for that day, what I would suggest is after you beat your daily dungeon, you lost, say, 5-10 stamina, immediately go in and watch your ads. Like, watch the ad for box space, because yay, and watch the ad to refill your stamina. If you had, say, 500 stamina, and then you used 5 to do the gift dungeon, you're at 495. Watching an ad will restore your stamina fully and overshoot it to make you have 995 stamina instead. So that means if you want to play the following day, you have a double stamina bar plus the 2 videos you can watch for the day. It's kind of like a way for me to kind of re-catch up, so to speak. Ultra Boosted also asks, if I had to choose to eat only one thing for the rest of my life, what would that be? I feel like that's going to be a frustrating aspect, but for myself, one thing the most common thing I eat is broccoli, and it tends to be like roasted in the oven. So I eat broccoli probably 4 times a week at least, like almost every other night, I feel, because it's just the most flexible vegetable. It's fast and easy to prepare. You just chop it up, throw it on a tray, put it in the oven, a bit of like salt, pepper, and various other dried herbs, and it's delightful overall. So I feel like broccoli would be the thing that I would say overall. Google account says my channel name, origin story. Well, back in the day, I had that t-shirt that says Mantastic, and I thought that was pretty cool. And then Mantastic's like a play on words of like being like kind of manly and whatnot and fantastic, and I thought, why not combine the two and imagine myself as this kind of alter ego persona. Necro Ramen says, what is my favorite food and why is it ramen? You know, I love ramen. I love noodles. I find noodles are my favorite kind of carb. If I had to eat a carb, I would choose noodles overall. And ramen just happens to be a delightful medium overall. It's nice and chewy. It's got that like texture. It's almost like it resists your bite a little bit. It doesn't like dissolve in your mouth. I can't stand things that dissolve in your mouth for like noodles. I just don't like that. I like the firm al dente texture. Raul Bastida says, thoughts on pineapple on pizza? It makes sense to have sweet and salty to counteract each other, but I've never been like a huge fan of pineapple on pizza. What Pancake and I do actually is often we'll buy like this like pre-made margarita pizzas from Safeway or Superstore or whatever, and then add our own toppings on top. It could be like some vegetables, it could be like strips of like pork belly, which we kind of fry up and make it like bacon, but it's much tastier than bacon, or extra cheese, those sort of things. So that's what we tend to do for our pizzas. So it's not like a traditional Italian pizza. It's just a pizza with like a flatbread pizza with tons and tons of extra toppings. But in order to prevent sogginess, we bake it without the extra toppings, throw the extra toppings on, broil it, and then it doesn't become a soggy mess. You have that crispy texture underneath. Lightning Gamer says, will I do an updated beginner guide? Maybe you could address things like what dungeons you should farm, teams for those dungeons, and how to make an endgame team, what you should look up to fill your monster box with, what latent awakenings you should do, etc. They're pretty lost as a new player and got into Yu-Gi-Oh! Collab, but they don't know how to. I cannot see any more of your message, but I'm guessing you don't know how to advance from here. Perhaps I just need to figure out, like, because like one drawback for myself is I don't have as much concept of like a new player experience. Like I did mention before, like when I did that Natsuru Kaiba SR3, where I break down the team, that I probably felt was probably helpful because like as a newer player, say in Magic the Gathering Arena, sometimes I like to, well, I usually just copy decks, but sometimes I'll just listen to why these cards are in the deck and I can understand a bit better. So maybe just explaining my thought process more moving forward might be a good way to incorporate it to like every video moving forward. Perhaps. And then finally, Bro Dude Man Bro asks, why can't I see all their assists when trying to add onto a card? It could be because maybe they don't have all the awakenings. It's possible that they got a buff and new awakenings were added, and thus you haven't had enough awakenings to fill it up, so therefore you are going to be missing some. Another option could be those cards were put on certain teams, and then you evolve them into a weapon assist. They're still being used on a team, or conversely, you had them as a base card, you inherited a weapon on top of them, you maybe evolved them to a weapon, it might mess it up so you can't inherit it, so on and so forth. So just check to see you have all the awakenings, they're not on any given team, and they're not inheriting something else, and you should be able to find those cards. And this was definitely a much shorter question time overall. Perhaps people are just busier in the summer, but that's all right, perfectly acceptable overall. So hopefully all you lovely ladies and gentlemen have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all the very best of luck in your own pad adventures. Thank you so much for asking your questions, and happy puzzling.